Hello, Techno team. Happy Thursday evening, okay? Now, we're going to get right into it today. We're going to kind of pick up where we left off yesterday, and I know I said we were going to the predictions page, and we are. We're going to go back to the predictions page, but I created a modified page because I want to actually stack a space-time clock, so this is a live feed, and I wanted to be real close to these objectives so that I can connect the dots and show how all this stuff is interconnected. Now, before we get started here, we're going to do just a quick review because there are two parts of every objective. There's the macro objective and there's the micro objective. Now, the macro objective has to do with this right here, and the micro objective has to do with this right here. And we're going to explain all of this. So let's start with the macro first. So the macro has to do with the concept of like Brahma in the cosmic egg, okay? So there are different layers that make our space-time reality possible, and each layer has a specific meaning. So we're going to actually talk about this first, and to do this, we're going to have to kind of scroll up, and I'm going to revisit these two diagrams that I modified for you guys yesterday to kind of show you how this is what's happening under the space-time clocks, and then the macro, that's this idea of these rings right here. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 rings total. So 8 dimensions. And then each dimension, there are 2 dimensions to each color. So there's this inner orange dimension, and then there's a middle red dimension, and then there's another middle yellow dimension, and then there's an outer green dimension. And what I want you to start to understand here is what these dimensions relate to. So the idea of the cosmic egg. So when we look at this orange dimension, it relates to this orange shape. That means this is the smallest shape within the cosmic egg, okay? This is what the cosmic egg looks like. So we've got the octahedron in the inside. Then we have the cube right here that's a little bit larger. Then we have the dodecahedron that's larger yet. And then we have the icosahedron, which is the largest. Now you're starting to understand why they'd say this is an egg. For example, if this was the biggest shape on the outside, it'd look like a circle. It's described as a cosmic egg because this icosahedron is kind of oval in shape, okay? Now, we're in the 2-5, okay? That's what this is. We're in the 2-5. This is the mental macro, so this objective is going to go for the entire year. So for the entire year, this is the part of the cosmic egg we're in. Specifically, the 2-5 is located right here. Now, this has to do with the micro objective. So we're going to get to that in just a minute as well, okay? Before we move on to this micro objective, I want to connect how these macro objectives are listed. So if we come down to the space-time clock and we look at every level here, so whether it's the macro mental, the micro mental, the macro emotional, the micro emotional, the macro physical, or the micro physical, what you're going to see is there are number combinations that exist right in here. Okay, so we got 2, 5, 3, 6, 2, 2, 6, 7, 7, 2, and 8, 7. All right. So what does that mean? Now you know that these numbers relate to the macro objective. So the 2, 5, if it's in the first 2 dimensions, we know that it's in this shape right here, the octahedron. If it's in dimension 3 and dimension 4, we know it's in this shape, the cube. Again, 2, 2, that's in the dimension of the octahedron. 6, 7, that's in the dimension of the dodecahedron. 7, 2, that's in the dimension of the icosahedron. And 8, 7, that's in also the icosahedron. The 8th dimension is icosahedron. And that's easy. That's how these numbers go out. So 1 and 2, again, octahedron. 3 and 4, cube. 5 and 6, dodecahedron. 7 and 8, icosahedron. Okay. So now that we've got an understanding of what the macro objective is, the macro objective has to relate to the number combinations here. Now, the hands of the clock are pointing to the micro objective. So we know the macro objective is about the daughter and the family for year 2025. This is the mental macro. This goes on for the entire year. So for the entire year, we're focused on developing maturing feminine energy. So that's figuring out how to start group relationships. And then it's going to be focused on the idea of how do we create balance and equality with all of the families throughout all of creation. Right, so we've set the foundation here. We're finally ready to introduce how the macro objective we just talked about is then tied in with the micro objective. So the macro objective, again, is the numbers on the clock, right? And then the micro objective is what the hand of the clock is pointing at. The hands of the clock are pointing at these shape combinations that go around the space-time clocks, all right? And the way that we've done this in every objective, so when you go and look at any objective, no matter what level of awareness is, no matter how long it is, it's broken into three sections: 0 to 25%, 25 to 75%, and 75 to 100%. Now, I want to connect that to these status bars. So if you watched How to Read the Space-Time Clocks, we talk about these status bars. And the way that we designed this is we created four equal squares that come across to create the entire cycle. So this would be the first 25%. This would be the second 25%. This would be the third 25%, and this would be the last 25%. So 0 to 25 is over the yellow color. 25 to 75 is going to happen in this blue section or in this purple section. And remember, if you watch the videos, the status bar either goes in the forward direction or the reverse direction, and it's telling you where we are. So like, for example, this purple status bar is in the 75 to 100 range. This blue status bar, because this is a year frequency, we're almost to the 50% range, which should make sense to you because in a couple of days here, we're going to be in the summer solstice. So that would mean that this first square relates to the winter season. The second square relates to the spring season. This will be when we go through summer. This will be when we go through fall, and then we'll start a new awareness come the winter solstice of the next year. Okay, so that's how these are designed, the 0 to 25, 25 to 75, and 75 to 100. So when you're looking at this, if we wanted to know what the micro objective is for year 2025 and the macro mental, this is where it is. Macro mental is this one. We're at the almost 50% mark, so that's going to be here. But then 25 to 75, this is the objective that's going on right now. Figuring out how to optimize group relationships that focus on the development of maturing feminine energy. So the development of maturing feminine energy, that's the macro objective. The micro objective is this right here, the icosahedron, refined feminine energy, right? Figuring out how to optimize. So not only are we starting groups, but during this phase of 2025, we should be working on optimizing the groups that we've started. Okay, now we're going to connect this into the time objective as well. So same thing's happening here. It's split out 0 to 25%, 25 to 75%, 75 to 100%. So we know we're in that almost 50% range. So that means that we're going to be in this objective right here. This is how we would dial in this even farther. So we know we're supposed to be creating feminine energy. We're supposed to be creating groups. We're supposed to be optimizing those groups. And they're supposed to specifically be focused on how do we unite the families and world perspectives in a way that's going to help every family experience equality. So this year specifically, we would want to be working on things as individuals and as groups of individuals on how to unite our family and world perspectives. Now, that's kind of what we're doing here, right? We're trying to connect everyone's theologies, all their past religious beliefs, so that we can start to bring our family perspectives to a world perspective where we're all on the same page here. I hope you understand that I'm actually harnessing the power of these cycles as we're doing this. We're like in sequence with where we're supposed to be here. Now, that's how this works in a nutshell. Okay, so before we move on here, I've actually set up one more example. So let me scroll down here and we're going to get set up on that example. And we're going to look at the micro mental. Now, this frequency is 7.5 days long. Okay, it's not a year long like the other one. It's 7.5 day long. And here it is. You can see we're almost to the end of this cycle. We're over 75% of the way through. So we're 75% of the way through the micro objective. So 75 to 100 is what we're going to be looking at. Now, the hand of the clock is going to be in the orange section. And remember, the micro hand is the shorthand. So here it is. It's in the orange section. And because we're at over 75% of the way, it's going to be pointing at a dual shape. It's going to be pointing at the yellow and green shape. Here it is. Now, it almost looks like it's in between these shapes. If you're not exactly certain, come here and look. There's two letters. That's icosahedron, dodecahedron. That's a dual shape. So here we go. It's already telling you. So we know that this is going to be about creating masculine energy, so starting individual relationships, and then we're going to have to combine it with the micro objective, which is about refined masculine energy and it's about refined feminine energy. So we have to optimize group and we have to optimize individual relationships. That would be the micro objective within the macro. Now, if we go to the time clock, we're going to do the same thing because we're in the 3-6, right? We know that we're in the cube. So in the cosmic egg, we're in the cube. The cube has to do with the sun and the individual's perspective. That's that masculine maturing energy. We already said that we're at over 75%, so 75 to 100, figuring out how to unite national world perspectives in a way that optimizes the individual experience. Now, we should see the hand of the clock on the time side. It's going to be in the yellow section, and it's going to be pointing at a combined micro shape of yellow-green. So let's see if that's happening. So here's the shorthand. This is the micro mental. Again, it's in the yellow section, and it's pointing at this shape combination right here, which is yellow and green. And if you look and you go, well, is it at this shape or this shape? Again, confirm it. ID, icosahedron, dodecahedron. It's a two-shape combination. That's how you would combine these macro objectives with these micro objectives. It's just math. It's just geometry. That's how these objectives are created. All right, so that's enough for this video. You've got an idea now of how these objectives are specifically tied into the clock and how it is I'm coming up with what it is we're supposed to do. Again, these are just perfectly symmetric shapes. There's two ways to look at them, a negative or a positive side. There's the big picture and then there's the little picture, and we're putting it all together. Okay, stay tuned. There should be another video before the end of your work shift today. Talk to you soon.